First, please sign in if you haven't. QR code floating around. Second of all, we want to welcome Patrick.
Hello.
Who's our new public member.
Hello, Patrick.
Welcome. Good to see you all.
We're very excited to have Patrick. He's got
Repeat the name?
Patrick Litke.
Patrick,
Yeah.
we missed your anniversary of your passing.
St. Patrick's Day.
Oh. Is
Oh.
your site, it's not a.
Only two
I heard
people.
many people
Did not get that.
It was unaccessible.
I had many more.
Sorry.
I'm just looking for a chair. We can bring a chair. Thank you.
Okay, so we have two big agenda items today. The first is sidewalk sheds and scaffolding, and then the second is an update on the ABC development site. Let's kick off the scaffolding issue. This is a joint effort on behalf of Parks and Environment, BCI, and us. The goal is today to do some fact-finding, show you some data, hopefully encourage all of you to help us with some of that data gathering. And then next month at one of the committee meetings to work on a resolution to support some, hopefully, some pending legislation that actually seems to be moving forward pretty quickly all of a sudden. So let me share the screen. Okay. This is strange. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if you all, is this shared?
That's right.
Perfect.
Well.
Can everyone see the map on Zoom? I don't know if they can. No, they can't.
Are you want to?
Walk in the rain.
There. Okay, now we're sharing. Okay.
I can see it.
Oh, you can? Okay, great. Okay, so I don't know if anyone, this was in the email that I sent out to everyone. Zoom out. So if you look at, it's the, here we go, sorry, this one, community districts. You can see that we have among the most.
Oh, wow.
So the darker the color, the longer, sorry, the more number of sheds.
No wonder I feel so oppressed.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a quick clarifying question? Sheds, is that the dining ones? Is that everything?
No, sorry, this is just scaffolding.
Right, okay, so this is like the taller white ones that are kind of,
Sometimes white,
Less.
sometimes not.
White's a
proprietary.
So maybe you want to describe what a shed.
yeah, let me
is.
look
big
at
like
it by the
aluminum
terms
tube.
here. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it
so
all
they
everything?
they are typically put up when a building is doing facade repairs to protect people on the sidewalk from any kind of debris that might happen. There's a local law 11, which requires buildings on a regular basis to inspect their facades. There was a terrible accident years ago, and so depending on the results of that facade, sometimes they have to get up there and do some repairs, which requires the sidewalk scaffolding. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Obviously, we are protecting all of our pedestrians below. The downside is sometimes they stay up too long because, and we'll get into a little bit more of that soon. We have Gail, and we're also going to have Jonathan Weinberg, who's the legislative aide from Senator Hoylman-Siegel's office, to come talk to us about the legislation. So just going to show you.
May I just add?
Absolutely,
So
please.
people use the term scaffolding and shed interchangeably.
That was, yeah.
Yes.
There's a difference.
There is a difference, but we in New York tend to
But we're not talking about
interchange.
scaffoldings here, right? Just the
Well,
shed.
We are, yeah.
Oh, okay. That was-
both.
Sometimes they're both scaffolding and a shed at the same time.
Very often.
They
You
can
can never have scaffolding without a shed.
True.
That's right.
That's right.
But you can have
a
shed without scaffolding.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
When we could then.
So this is just a little, it's a fun, I will resend the website, but it's in the email that I sent you. It's a fun thing to play with.
Mhm.
The data is not perfect. So for instance, not to harp on what's not perfect, but for instance, this is, there we go. So this is the sheds in one of the Douglas Houses campuses. And you can see it says it's been up 326 days, but it's
Mhm.
actually been up much longer. So if a shed is taken down and then re-put up again, the building department permit only shows the most recent one. So that said, you do have like some of our biggest scofflaws, oops, and you can tell scofflaws may be the wrong word, but biggest violators, I think this is the big one. Yeah, this guy has been up since 2018. This is on the corner of 104th and Broadway. So, and the city is also one of the biggest offenders, unfortunately. So I'm gonna stop this. One of the things we would love is if there's scaffolding, sidewalk sheds that are irritating you guys, make a list, email us, and we want to start working on getting rid of them. And the most important thing we can do is A, if they're not safe, we want people to call in 311 complaints. And then second of all, sometimes it's hard to figure out what exactly is driving the reason for the shed being up. And so that's something else that we can hopefully help start getting clear on. So I'm gonna stop that in 1 second. Yeah, go ahead.
Just quickly, some of us in the room were privileged to be at the press conference.
Yes, please, talk.
Yeah, I'm doing it not because, I mean, we were four of us, I think. I'm looking at least 3. There we go. And then I think Doug came along. And it was 2 of our elected officials, and I believe that that Gail Brewer also came along, absolutely.
Yep.
So it was a kind of a satire, but a successful one and a funny one. I was amazed at the Oscars. And the whole thing was as if we're giving out the Oscars for it was hard to say the best, the worst, or whatever. But at least Michael Lasher had a small Oscar there and used that. So there was both a lot of fun, and it was so clear where we were standing. It was 80, please remind me.
86 and
Columbus,
Columbus,
yeah.
West.
And it was so extraordinary as to how much it covered, how awful it was, and how long it had been up. And so, and to just watch as we stood there, because we had the opportunity to just see the normal pedestrians coming around and not being able to walk through, you know, the block was also, it was blocking them. So they had to go around and so on. So the whole thing was terrible. It was a sort of a good PR thing. I think the 4 community board, 7 people, I speak for myself. It was fun. I also felt we were doing something good. And what I really loved, I felt privileged. We were communicating this particular thing that was supposed to be something good for the public and has proven itself to be a dangerous obstacle. So I'm just saying that for all of us, and it meant a lot.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. One of, I think, the biggest tools in our toolbox is public shaming, so that is helpful.
I have a question about the night shift program with sheds. I
Yes.
mean, my understanding is that they were basically putting up sheds to increase lighting visibility at the entrances to campuses and buildings. Does anyone know more details about
Putting pup sheds?
like there's scaffolding that's basically been put up in front of most NYCHA properties now with lighting on them to increase lighting visibility? I'm wondering, like, do we have any knowledge of this? Like, that's my like informal understanding, but is there like a formal program? Like, do we have any more information about this? Because I've noticed that like most NYCHA buildings at this point have some kind of scaffolding with a light infrastructure built in. And I don't really feel like I understand how long they're planning for them to stay up.
We can ask.
Yeah.
We're in contact with an administrator.
Because that's something I've noticed in our, you know, obviously we have a lot of NYCHA properties in Community Board 7, so it'd be interesting to understand what the plan is for them.
As far as the lights go, are they like the long tube lights like you might see in like the white scaffolding, or are they like in the cage like construction lights? Because that could tell us whether this is more of an intentional.
It's a mix. Like you can see like the property on Amsterdam and I want to say like high 80s, like that's clearly construction, right? They're
Right.
redoing the facade and the roof. But a lot of them, it appears like they're more like a semi-permanent lighting, like task lighting. So I'd be interested to know more about that.
I imagine that they're just like Swamp or whatever, like they
They're-
failed their local law 11, so they
Yeah.
have to have the sidewalk shut up, and they've just put more lighting than is required by code. But I find it hard to believe that NYCHA has put up sidewalk sheds just for lighting.
Well, there was a program a few years ago where NYCHA was putting up pretty extreme lighting near certain campuses
In
that were,
2016,
that were
they-
deemed.
they did a
That
whole-
happens up by Douglas.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering
They
if
did a
this
whole
was like,
lighting.
right, is
Yeah.
this sort of like a softer version of
Keep in
that?
mind, all scaffolding, those streets, they have to have lighting. by
Yeah.
law.
But I'm just wondering, because it seems like a lot of them are very small contained structures right near the entries, so I'd just be interested to learn more about this, I've noticed it.
Yeah, we can find out about that. That's, I mean, here.
If anybody wants to ask me questions about it, I do this kind of work, so.
Oh, you know about
I'll continue
NYCHA?
with the discussion.
You know about NYCHA?
Sorry?
You know about the scaffolding at NYCHA? Can you answer Miriam's
Scaffolding
question?
at NYCHA, I couldn't hear the question.
I was just asking, it seems like a lot of nature properties that are currently under construction have some kind of scaffolding structure
Okay,
with
well-
lighting.
Okay, I'll leave that then. The NYCHA's financing issues are above and beyond what we could do, and we could spend the rest of the year talking about those. That's a whole different issue because they, compared to a private owner or a co-op, they have nowhere to go. So that's their issue. And then at the same time, if it's one of them in one of the various set privatization schemes, they may be in process of doing work. So NYCHA is a different ballpark. And of course, as you know, federal funding for public housing is going to be zero starting now. So NYCHA is a whole other issue.
Yeah, it is definitely handled differently. So I think we need to dig into actually each of the NYCHA facilities because I think it's, yeah, I think it's different also case by case. So I'm just going to move things along. So one of the documents that I sent you is Mark Levine's Shed the Sheds initiative. And this, these points, these 5 strategies with the bullets underneath are, I'll let you take a look at them. They are basically what the city council legislation tries to address. So one, I'll just read them quickly. Provide support for buildings who need help getting work done quickly. Sometimes it's the owners don't have, it is actually more cost effective to have the scaffolding up rather than deal with the actual repair, which is how some of the longest standing ones are up. So there's some ideas about how we can make that less of a problem. Reduce delays caused by permitting requirements and also negotiations with neighbors. Hold buildings accountable for failure to complete work in a timely manner. That's also something that's addressed at the state level legislation that's pending. Update local law 11, which is driving so much of this work, both in terms of what is required and how often it's required. Okay, so the 2 pieces of legislation, and then maybe we'll open it up to Gail and if Jonathan Weinberg is on the Zoom. I don't know if you guys had a chance to look at the legislation. The state legislation basically incentivizes owners to the extent that they need the scaffolding to get it down as quickly as possible. And to that extent, there's a tax reduction to property taxes. If the shed is up for longer than 18 months, then there ends up being a penalty, again, based on the base of the penalty is the property taxes. The city council legislation focuses more on like the sheds itself. So the design, the appearance of the shed, trying to make them safer and less intrusive, and then adjusting the regulations for how often they are needed. That's the local law 11 tweaks. Again, the second one is also about trying to make them a little bit less intrusive. And then the penalties are also pending in the council legislation. So does
The council member?
Yeah,
She just stepped up. I can give a little update.
please, thank you.
I'm Sam Goldsmith. I work in Gilbert's office. The 4 bills that are on this list today, actually, there were what's called A versions that were put up. So the edits that went into the bills after they were first heard, now they've, put forward the revised versions that are the A versions. So presumably that means that all 4 bills will be voted on next week at the stated meeting. I think it's Thursday, it might be Wednesday. And, when bills go up for a vote, they always pass. So that's presumably next week.
That's great.
That's fantastic. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, and there's Jonathan as well. Right, I'm gonna do that. Give me 1 second. Okay, stop share. Ah. Okay, so Jonathan, thank you for joining us. Anybody have any
course.
questions on the state level legislation? And or Jonathan, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, why don't I just briefly go over the bills? Thank you so much for the introduction and for having us. Greetings from actually surprisingly warm and sunny Albany, New York. My name is John Weinberg. I'm legislative counsel in the office of State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel. And the slide did a very good job on one of the bills. So I'll just briefly go over the concept. The idea is to have both a carrot and a stick for landlords who have to put up sidewalk sheds and do repairs consistent with the city law. And the upshot of the bill is you put up the sidewalk shed and you start the repairs. And then we induce you with a carrot if you quickly complete those repairs. And the carrot is larger if you complete them more quickly. And then after a year, that carrot disappears. And then if it gets to 18 months, we break out the stick. And again, the slide described it very well. But if you were to complete the repairs, meaning you put up the sidewalk shed, you start the required local law repairs, and within 3 months, you complete those repairs and you take down the shed. In that year, you get a property tax abatement that is up to or equal to 50% of the lesser of your property tax liability for that year or the cost of the repairs. And then that goes down. So if it takes 4 months, you take it down after 4 months, you'd only get 45%. 5 months, 40%, what have you, all the way to the point where, okay, if you get it up and down in a year, you get a 5% abatement. Again, 5% of your property tax, the lesser of the property taxes or the cost of those repairs. If it takes more than a year, you don't get an abatement. And then if the property owner fails if that sidewalk shed stays up for 18 months, and you all on this call know painfully well that sheds stay up for years. Sorry, I have to go a little softer because the senator is on an important call next door. You would have a penalty that would be up to 10% of your property taxes, and that would be up to 18 months. Our other bill, which was also just introduced, creates a private right of action for tenants against the landlords who maintain certain sidewalk sheds. So if a tenant, if you're a landlord, if you're a commercial or residential tenant, and your landlord maintains a sidewalk shed for more than 30 days without doing any work on the project, or maintains a sidewalk shed that's a public nuisance, or maintains a sidewalk shed that violates city rules about the sidewalk sheds, you would be able to give the property owner, you're the tenant, you give your landlord a notice that they're violating the law. They'd have 30 days to remediate. And if they fail to remediate, you could bring a court action to recover fees and then any damage that was accrued to you as a result of that sidewalk shed being up. Both of these bills were introduced. We're in the heat of budget season here in Albany. So we are negotiating the final budget with the governor. That'll be done by early April, and then our legislative session starts in earnest, and we hope to make progress in advancing both of these bills starting in mid-April.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sheldon.
A question, number one question is when would this, if it was passed, when would that begin? And I can't imagine it being retroactive.
Great questions, and you are correct. Neither of these bills would have retroactive effect. The property tax abatement procedure would begin immediately after the governor signed it into law. The private right of action would take effect 90 days after it's signed into law. And for context, after we pass bills in Albany, if either of these pass in the legislative session, which ends in mid-June, the governor has until the end of the year to decide whether to sign or to veto.
And so, Jonathan, the scaffolding that has been up for so long, does the clock start ticking on them like as soon as whenever it goes into effect, or are those sort of grandfathered out of this penalty carrot stick thing?
That's a really good question. I would say that Yeah, you guys are, this is a smart community board. And I'm used to dealing with smart people. So even on that standard, it's not expressly clear in the current language. So we'd have to kind of run that through and get back to you all.
It says, Richard had his hand up.
Sorry, go ahead.
Just, how long does the tax abatement or the tax increase last? Is it just 1 year or is it?
Just the year in which the repairs were completed.
Two questions.
I apologize. I do have an answer. Any covered repairs that are underway at the time the bill takes effect would be eligible for the abatement. So the clock would start when the law is signed.
Okay. They also be eligible for the penalty.
It says that it's less than a year they're eligible in the law. I'm sure you know.
Okay, Klari.
Okay, two questions. One, the requirement for a sidewalk shed could be anything from a completely new massive construction of a totally new building to pointing of brick or masonry repairs or even installing new windows or something like that. So the vastly different scope of work that elicits the need for a requirement. So is there anything built in to these time periods that would take into account the largeness or smallness of the project for which the shed is in place?
Really good question. And I would say that yes, because the cost of the project is factored into the valuation for the abatement or the penalty.
My other question is the private right of action that's created for tenants. Do co-op shareholders and condo owners qualify as plaintiffs in that situation?
So that's another really good question. Currently, the bill as drafted only applies to tenants. So I believe that under the law, you would not be considered a tenant, but we could certainly consider an amendment to that effect.
Any legal provisions, co-op owners are tenants because they have proprietary leases, whereas condos are treated differently under many laws, but I don't know what yours does.
Oh, well, I appreciate that context. So this would be consistent with how the law otherwise treats landlord-tenant relationships.
Okay. The ideas are fine, but the time spans are not realistic. They don't reflect real world situations. They don't reflect, particularly in our area, we have many buildings that are landmarked or landmark districts. Okay, we have your basic building department permit is 2 to 4 months. Okay, if you're going for materials, if you're going for terracotta or things like that, you can be, or special brick or special brick shapes, you can be talking 8 to 12 months. And then you're still running into weather seasons. Also, right now, I'm going to take a dig at some guys down in Washington. We're going to lose a lot of our workforce in this market for this kind of work. They're going to be decimated. And just so you don't know me, I don't know you. I actually work for the state of New York, and I do this kind of work for the state of New York. I've done it for the city of New York, and I've done it for private entities for over 40 years. So you have to get to the realistic things. If it's a matter of addressing an unsafe condition, that can be done in 3 months, because basically you do it and you address the condition, but that doesn't alleviate the issue of doing the actual repairs. And if you have if your materials aren't fabricated in sync with the construction season, you can easily go to 2 years if you have the labor force, if everything falls in place. So if you're going to have these deadlines, that's great if you have a very narrow slice of what is New York City's housing stock, which is basically, I would say, 1960 forward. But if you're talking about anything before 1960, and probably even in between 60 and 2000, because I've had to match brick on buildings from the mid 60s, and the sources don't exist anymore. So we have to get some realistic times, or we have to create a mechanism to create exceptions. And as I said, this is particularly an issue on the Upper West Side with a lot of old buildings. So
Yeah,
I'd be happy to have an open conversation of what is realistic lines in this.
I appreciate that feedback. It's incredibly helpful. I'd love to continue that conversation about potential amendments with respect to either the deadlines or specifying certain sorts of projects that wouldn't be subject to the penalties or the private right. So please stay in touch. And again, I'd love to hear more from you, maybe offline. I can give you my email address and we can follow up.
One thing, if you do have an unsafe condition in a local law 11 inspection, you're not supposed to have a lot of time to correct it.
Right.
And certainly we should be in sync with what those time spans are.
I think he answered my question. That was my
So good.
I want to agree with a lot that Ira just said, and I'm not an architect, but I am a retail broker, and scaffoldings are the enemy of retail and the street front. And I am in the position often of whipping the landlord and reassuring a tenant when the scaffolding is coming down or how long it's been up or what happens if it comes up during the term of a lease. And so I just wrote this down ad hoc. Typically what happens, right? Remember, local law 11 is subject to buildings that are 5 stories and higher, not
Six.
so 6, right? So, right. So on the map that we saw, you saw a lot of areas that didn't have scaffolding, and I would submit that some of those areas are probably low-rise buildings. But typically what will happen is an inspector comes along for the was it the 3-year inspection, excuse me. And so
For local law, it's 5.
Oh, sorry, 5. I think we're trying to bring it to, right. So basically what happens is, right, an inspector, DOB inspector, and says, we got a problem, you got to put scaffolding up, right?
It's the private inspector retained by the owner.
Right, okay, so you have to submit to your own inspection. By the way, I know there's some discussion about the possibility of using drones and other ways to expedite that. But so basically, we have an issue now where work has to be done, right? So first of all, you have to get a permit to put the scaffolding up, right? And then there's a time to contract and bid out. The scaffolding goes up, right? And all the other things and with regard to LPC, that now you've got the installation. Now you're bidding on the actual corrective work. That can take a lot of time to bid on the work. Finally, you have a contractor to do the work. That work has to be permitted, right? So then there's time to get the permit. Now the work has to be completed. Some work is very temperature sensitive, cannot be done in certain weather conditions and certain temperature, depending on what you're doing, because some concrete can't cure. It's dangerous, of course, for people to be working in high wind situations. Now you've done the work. Then you're calling back an inspector, right? Now you're waiting for an inspector to check on the work that you've done, right? Well, Ira's telling me I'm a little bit out of.
Some of the city legislation is trying to address.
Yeah, no, I see that. So I'm just sort of giving the timeline here. So the complaints that I hear from landlords is, I've done my work. I've been waiting 2.5 months for an inspector, right? Now, finally, the inspector comes and maybe they approve the work, or they say you need to do a little bit more. And it goes on and on. Finally, eventually the work is completed and the scaffolding comes down. But that timeline, in my experience, is way too long. And so I guess the question I'm sort of dovetailing, which is in terms of the clock, if a landlord, let's assume we have a good-willed landlord and there's plenty of bad actors, but let's say we have someone who's really trying to do the work and they have this carrot and stick and there are things beyond their control. If they're waiting, they had waited 3 months for an inspector. Why is that? Why doesn't the landlord get the carrot if they didn't do anything wrong?
So one of the other things about that timeline is they have to have the funds on hand, and if they have to go borrow.
Hold on, let's let Jonathan.
Yeah, I'd love to answer the question. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So there is a provision that if the landlord can provide evidence that any delays are the result of factors outside of their control or entities hired by them, the building owner penalties can be waived if it is found that the factors are outside of their control.
You get the carrot too. Does the clock stop? Is my question.
Can we make this the last couple of comments and then?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think statewide private right of actions for things like this are disastrous and cause more problems. And I think this is only going to be effective at getting lawyers paid and actually isn't going to solve any of the actual issues, unlike the city legislation, which I think really looks at the issue and understands it and is working towards that.
Is there a question or was that just a comment?
That was just a comment.
Okay, I'm happy to discuss civil litigation and the considerations and the right to cure. And I hear you, and I'm generally skeptical. I will say that this has been a little more specifically drafted and does not provide for statutory penalties or what have you. And coupled with the right to cure, I would respectfully submit that this is a little more specific and designed specifically not to create a cash cow.
Seema, I just want to flag that you have some hands up online as well.
I don't even see the online people. Sorry.
Going off of what Ira, right? Yeah, going off what you.
Whole right of access problem.
Yeah.
As well, which I didn't mention.
What you were saying about the weather running, causing problems, the construction season causing problems. My dad has been on his co-op board for God knows how long at this point. So I figured I'd ask him about this before coming here. And he mentioned that might have been an issue. And this is just a couple hours old, so it's a bit rough. But I took a look at the original data that map was based off. It turns out, and I will say I could be wrong about the implications of this, but regardless of the alleged use, whether it's for a local law 11 inspection or for a general construction maintenance thing, if a permit is issued in between March and August, it will the shed's gonna stay up for on average for construction and maintenance. It was over 100 days longer. I think it around 120 days. And for local law 11s, it was still around 60. So I'm not sure how close in time inspections are to getting the permits for everything. So I could be wrong about this, but do we think it could be useful for all non-emergency inspections to be moved to the winter season so you don't have these weather delays?
If your local law 11 inspection it's not a inspection that has work that needs to be done right away. But the sidewalk shed is not going to go up until the contractor shows up because the sheds are rented by the month. The same thing is, if you're not going to work on it for 3 months, you're not going to take the shed down for 3 months because it's a most of the expenses in the setting up and taking down.
I have a very brief, I would agree. So my condo is currently doing local law 11 and we put up our shed in January and then it was unseasonably cold all winter. And we're a masonry building, which is requiring masonry repointing, which is obviously pretty common on the Upper West Side in historic buildings. And as you said, it was cold all winter. We couldn't do repairs. So our sheds understandably been up and we've been waiting to start the repairs. And so the weather is an impact and I think is considerable and we should talk about that, especially as we have more extreme weather now. And then secondly, we've been waiting for LPC to approve the color of our grout. So again, I think that there are some, we want to be sensitive to these historic properties, but there are some delays that cause time and money that are outside. I think my condo's been acting, in best faith and has been working really hard to get this done, but there's just a lot of challenges of doing repairs with our current climate and LPC standards. So I think that it's important to think about that too and not penalize the owners because we've been doing our best to get it done.
Okay. And again, just a reminder that the bill expressly and unequivocally ensures that owners will not be penalized for delays that are outside of their control. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna stop with board member comments. We have 2 questions in the Q&A. One is Cynthia Tibbs. She says, why don't you ask us presidents what's happening with the nitrous sheds instead of assuming? Exactly. So we certainly didn't assume anything. Instead, we said we would look into it. But Cynthia, if you'd like to talk, we'd be happy to listen.
She's here. She's ready to go.
Okay, great.
Good evening. Once again, I don't like to come off as abrasive or rude, but I would like to say that I have tried multiple times to work with this board on issues regarding NYCHA. And I have invited Tibita since last May to come to my monthly meetings regarding the roof projects that we were getting ready to have over here. The brownstones consist of 36 NYCHA landmark status buildings. We are currently upgoing multiple capital projects over here that I worked very hard to get NYCHA to approve the money to, that we have going on. I have tried to include this board so that they would know when our sheds were going up, when our sheds would be coming down, exactly what is going on. And this board has said that they would attend my meetings and have never showed up. So for me to be on here tonight listening to why we have lighting under our sheds, I expressively asked for more lighting to go under the sheds so that once again, the public wouldn't say that they were afraid to walk under NYCHA buildings in fear of getting attacked because it was too dark. So it's like, I can't win. If I put too much lighting, you want to know why there's lights there. Ask us. We would be more than happy to let you know what's happening over here. Our sheds are not up forever. Mine will be up hopefully for no more than 3 years. And I made an agreement with the contractors that they would go up according to what buildings were being worked on first. Even though we have 72 roofs that are being worked on, they're being done in increments of 3 or 4 buildings at a time. Our sheds go up, they finish, they will be coming down, or they will move on to somewhere else. We are not encased in a million sheds over here. And again, you guys would know if you would communicate with us, if you would show up. I can't keep extending an olive branch to a bunch of people that sit behind their desks and ignore us and then assume, oh, NYCHA's doing this, NYCHA's doing that. That's not fair to keep doing to us. It's not fair at all. I answer my phone. I answer my emails. You guys do not cooperate or communicate back. And it's extremely frustrating. None of you live in NYCHA. So rather than to assume moving forward, feel free to reach out to us. We talk to our contractors every single day. So does Carmen Quinones up at Douglas. We have meetings with our contractors every day. For people that don't get paid, we do just as much work as NYCHA officials do. They don't live here, we do. We watch what the workers do.
Polly's here, just FYI.
Thank you, Polly. But hi, but this is just getting ridiculous. No matter how many people come on this housing board that I have tried to work with, past and present, you don't work with us.
We will change that. We will be there at your next meeting.
Let's make sure that.
My meeting is Tuesday. Again, I send flyers all the time. Tibita goes, I will be there, and then nobody shows. I'm not going to keep extending an olive branch to a bunch of people who feel that they don't need to know what's going on and make their own assumptions. I tried to include you before the project started to let you know when our sheds were going up, to let you know the work we're doing, and yet you ignore us time and time again. And I'm tired of talking. I yield back.
We hear you. We hear you. We will be there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you, Cynthia.
The next question, maybe Gail, you could help us
Seema, I
with
want to
this.
just add
Oh,
something,
please.
because I have a website that you guys can look at capital projects at NYCHA, okay?
Wow.
So the website is capital, one word, tracker.nycha.info.
Wait, .nyc.
.info.
.info.
When you go to that site, you can click on whatever location you would like. So for instance, if you put in 830 Amsterdam, you will see that they are working on roofs. It gives you extensive information on what's going on.
Fantastic.
Okay. So for that person, I don't know her name, but you can go to.
No, this is great.
website.
I'm glad to learn more.
So that will help you as far as why there's scaffolding there. But most of the time, it's because they're working on the facade and the roofs, as Cynthia said.
Got it.
And I think that site is actually linked on the NYCHA website. If you click on each
Yeah, but the fastest way is to go.
Yeah.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay,
an even faster way is to ask us. We're here.
Absolutely. Okay, last question for Gail, maybe. These carrots and sticks in these state buildings, in these state bills, focus on private owners. What can we do to get city-owned buildings to do the same?
Well, no, I mean, I think, not the city-owned building, there's nonprofits also.
Right.
I think, you know, I mean, not just a world unto itself. Most of them in this neighborhood, either it's West Park Presbyterian Church, probably the longest.
Right.
And you know, I think you know that from, if not, I'd be glad to share it. Then there's also, NYCHA, and I don't know that there's anything else that's in this area, what that would be.
Well, we have several well-knowns.
PS 87 was for 4 years with scaffolding there. There was no rush to get that down.
As far as I know, all the schools, you got PS 87, Joan of Arc, 166 is down, that's done.
Yeah, 165 is not your
No, I was there
district, but
I was
it's
there
an
last night.
eternal.
I mean, I think the schools, the issue with the schools is, you know, they have to do it when kids are not in session. So they do it night and weekends, and then neighbors complain. Yeah. So that's not the issue. I mean, I said how much.
As the person that asked the question, I just want to clarify. What I'm saying is, if we're going to offer carrots and sticks on private owners, can we offer that same? When I don't have light on my brownstone for 4 years because of scaffolding, can I just like tenants can sue a landlord? Can I sue the New York School Construction Authority? Are they losing budget over this? Is there something that we can do to make sure that we get the same rights over city buildings as you're trying to put on private owners?
It's a really good question, Alon. Thank you for that. I was actually just talking with our district director today about this exact issue, specifically how we can induce compliance and timely repair with public buildings as well. It's a little trickier for us with respect to dealing with the city. We would need a home rule notification for a bill that was that specific as to city landlords and city construction, but certainly not impossible. I will say watch this space because this is an ongoing conversation for our office that we're very sensitive to and want to help problem solve with.
Great. Okay, I think we'll move on. Yes?
We're not having a reso on this tonight.
No. So that's, again, fact finding. Yeah. So
Are
we will.
you speaking about the city legislation as well?
No.
Are you moving on?
Yeah, we're moving on to the.
Can I just say one thing then?
Please.
I'd like to get his contact.
I'll send it to you. I have it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to second to some extent what Adam had to say. I tend to think, and thank you so much for the presentation. I'm a big fan of both Micah and Brad and what they're trying to do, but I think a city response makes a lot more sense.
We have
Oh, I know you do. That's why I'm looking right at you, Gail. And I like what I see the city trying to do here. The concern I have about state approach is it's gonna be more whack-a-mole. I think we're all frustrated with the scaffolding goes up, the scaffolding comes down, you just name the school came down, the school's still up. And what I like about the city proposal is it's a more targeted effort to deal with the larger systemic problem that scaffolding presents because of the laws that have been passed. And the state, they don't have that option because of where they sit and how they're positioned, and you do. So I thank you for what you're trying to do.
I'll send them to the chair and then you can circulate them. If you want.
Thank you very much.
They're passing March 26th.
And they don't have to be mutually exclusive. These two things can work together, but I like what you're working on.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the second,
Thank you, Seema.
no, of course, second item on our agenda, which is an update. So the way we're gonna have this, a brief public update, and then because of the nature of the conversations happening, we're gonna take it into executive session after that. So just to give you a sense of what has been happening so far, I don't know how to get that little green thing away. Bear with me. So when the special Lincoln Square district was created, we're talking about, just to orient ourselves, the red ABC block. I have no cursor. You know what I'm talking about? The red ABC block. So when originally the special Lincoln Square district was created, that block was omitted to preserve the flexibility needed to attract corporate campus and the studios of ABC. Recently, Disney decided to move their headquarters downtown to Hudson Triangle, and so as a result, they sold that whole campus, which is quite extensive, to developers. Originally, it was Silverstein, and then Silverstein to Extel, beginning in the summer of 2018. And we have Sean Corsandi, the executive director of Landmark West, here as well, who will speak briefly, or as much as he likes in a minute. Landmark West began an effort in the summer of 2018 to expand the special district to include that and bring the zoning in conformance to the neighborhood. The idea there, and Sean will speak more about this, that the regulation should run with the use of the property, not with the land. Community Board 7 joined in with Landmark West to submit the application to the New York Department of City Planning, along with much help from George Janes, who's here as well to talk about this. That application stalled. Continuing conversations have happened with Gale, Landmark West, and a few representatives from CB7 with Extel regarding what their plans are. Those conversations are ongoing. We will talk more in a bit about exactly what Extel wants to do, but they want to build a very large building on Columbus Avenue and maybe another building mid-block. CB7, our official stance is that we object to a super tall building and believe that this large parcel on the Upper West Side should contribute to solving a portion of the affordable housing crisis that we face. Gail will talk about her stance, but I believe it's that she wants permanent on-site affordable, akin to something like the mandatory inclusionary housing program. And then Landmark West, Sean will speak to this. Yeah. So can I have a motion to take this into executive session?
So moved.
No, you need to say what it is for.
Sorry, it's for a confidential negotiation regarding real property.
That's unfortunately not one of the things covered by our bylaws.
Which may or may not. It doesn't matter what it's in our bylaws.
It does. We have bylaws that say when we can go executive session.
This is more what's in the open meeting law.
Also, open meeting law wouldn't cover this.
Yes, it would.
It would not. There is an OML thing that says that real property is covered if it is owned by the government and would change the value of the property.
This may in fact change the value, and it may in fact involve ultimately litigation. So we can either adjourn this meeting now or we can go into executive session.
Okay, I really am very uncomfortable with this and highly doubt. If there's something in the meeting that we talk about.
I shared this with our, with Richard, who is our parliamentarian, and he felt this was within the appropriate scope of what we could do.
Can we see whether there are any non-board members present? So it may be moved.
We have.
We have to shut down the stream.
Yeah, Richard, we're also live streaming, so we're also live streaming.
And recording.
As is required.
Yes.
You know, my general theory of meetings along and being parliamentarian is you do what's practical. And we can't get the information that we need because there's reluctance to share it among the people who know it. And for that reason, I would say let's go ahead with an executive session. We're not going to be voting.
We're not voting, that's correct.
And
we are not doing business.
And at some point, there will be emerging from this a Community Board 7 resolution, which would be debated publicly.
Yes,
correct.
But the point, I'm sorry, other people should speak first.
Go ahead.
Look, I mean,
Adam, if you want us all to go home right now.
I didn't know what this was about, right? I just saw a discussion of real property, which I assumed was us going to discuss our office or something that would be covered by OML. If we're gonna have a community board, the purpose of which was to have public meetings and involve the community, and we're just discussing a private ULURP application.
It's not a ULURP application.
Or whatever it is, then like I'm kind of confused what is happening that the
Can someone maybe explain why it should be done in executives? Like,
Can we hear you, please?
There
Yeah,
are,
thank you.
there
Let me
are
just be really clear.
negotiations that are sensitive and that we would not wish to, at this point, reveal necessarily to the owner of the site. And those cannot be discussed in executive session without real damage to the ability of this board to have a position and to support it. That is the issue.
And may I ask Richard to please, since you are assuming and have been appointed parliamentarian, would you mind repeating the first, I think, 3 sentences of why this is legitimate and why it is the practical way for us to act? Because you went through it very quickly, and I'm going to nail you as parliamentarian.
I can't remember the first.
Well, I think we have to hear something again.
Yeah, basically, this is my general approach to being a parliamentarian. People can disagree. Is that guided by what's fair and what's necessary and what's practical and what's common sense. And there have been numerous instances over the years where we have not precisely followed our bylaws, and the alternative here is for us not to know
That's
what's
right,
going
that's
on.
the alternative.
So, as between those two alternatives, I think that the more common sense alternative is to accommodate the negotiators and move it to executive session.
Would it be possible to have an update and not discuss the sensitive information
No.
that would undermine the negotiating situation?
We've basically just had that.
You're right.
That was the,
Oh, that was it?
that was it.
Oh, so everything else is sensitive information that goes to the negotiator?
Correct.
Oh, wow, okay. Sounds interesting.
I mean, there's also a history that was going to be told about how we got to where we are.
Okay.
Haven't we beaten to death the question of whether to go into executive session?
We can vote
Have
on it.
We could vote, or
Or
Beverly
not,
could
or just make a
outweigh
ruling.
Adam's comments, but isn't it time to go
Yes.
offline and have the
Yes.
executive session?
I would move that we vote on it for the sake of a
That's-
record.
that's
Can we hear that again? please?
I move that we vote on whether or not to go into executive
Which is
session.
appropriate for.
And if we're voting,
Yes.
we've had some discussion, but I also would like to just add that I do think this is a practical way of doing this, and the fact that we're not taking any action and we're not voting on anything gives me comfort. And if we have a commitment that when we do ultimately have a proposal, which will be a resolution on behalf of CB7, that will be very public, and very open to be.
And those conversations are in the future at this point.
Yes.
Yeah,
To be
and
clear,
I would add that,
The other thing is that the negotiators are somewhat hampered in their negotiations without knowing what the sensibility is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of this has been done totally in secret from everyone.
No,
on
we
this
don't have
committee.
any.
But that's the whole point of this update.
Exactly.
All right, why don't we call the
I
question?
think it's important to vote
Yes.
because we want to
Call
have a
the
record
question.
All
for
in
how.
favor?
Well, nobody seconded my motion to
I'll
vote.
second
Yes,
it.
yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Favor
Aye.
of,
Well,
Of
it's
what?
just a vote of committee members.
wait,
Yes.
Just a vote of
It's just
committee
a vote
members.
of committee
The
members.
motion on the table is whether or not to go into executive session. All in favor?
It's just committee members.
It's a joint meeting between executive and housing and land use. So
Is that what it was listed as?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So then that's not enough. It has to be a majority
Of whom?
of committee members.
Of those present.
No,
Joint
of
committee.
committee
God,
members.
George James is such a hack anyway. Oh, shit.
It's just committee members.
Well, wait a minute, how many are opposed?
Yeah, and opposed.
I mean,
1, 2.
but if you check the
I'm
OML law,
abstaining.
it's has to be of committee members, not of committee members.
That's still the
present.
majority of the committee.
No, but you just said it's a joint.
Well, no, the meeting was
That's-
called as
but
a
Our own
joint.
bylaws say it has to be just one committee.
But the OML decisions say that it's,
I think, well, isn't it?
then
a quorum?
if it's
Once
just
you
one
have
committee, then we don't count Doug's vote.
That's right.
So then it would be 9 votes.
Am I the only executive here besides Beverly?
Clarifying, this was not actually listed as a joint committee meeting. That was, it wasn't listed there.
Doug and I will not vote, and we have a majority.
So then what was the count?
It's eight,
Aren't you on land?
No.
8-2.
But we have 18 members on land use.
No, we don't.
Did you count the abstention?
18. Who's,
I don't think we have 18.
that's what's on the website.
Well, they.
Yeah.
You know, technically, we don't have to, that's fine.
Tibita,
And we
Seema,
will
Miriam,
ahead
Richard, Adam, Paige, Louisa, Saralee, Sheldon, Jami, Miranda, Ira, Klari, Melissa, Ethel, Polly, Howard, Patrick.
Isn't it once you have quorum, it's the majority that is present?
Okay, so that would put us at 17. So we have 8 votes out of 17.
I can throw in my, if I'm, is public member allowed to vote? I feel like we-
Yes.
Okay, and that, yeah, go to executive.
What? I didn't hear that.
So then
I
it's
was
9 and
confused
17.
about
Okay.
public members.
Okay, 9 out of 17 is a majority.
All right, we are going into executive session.
Thank
Max,
you.
can you please,
Disconnect.
disconnect us from the web?
Did you wanna get a whole vote, because at 9, I get it, and I get there were 2 people opposed, but there are some abstentions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Okay, abstaining.
2 of the 3.
1, 2, 3. Sorry. And ineligible, anyone? Okay, 9 to 2 to 3 to 0, so the motion passes.
And are we now, please state what is allowed to happen?
Are we off?
Hold
now?
on, yeah. Max, can you confirm that we are not live streaming?
We're showing people who are still on.
I'm working on it right now.
Okay, great. So we'll hold off until you tell
Yeah,
us.
just let me have a second and then I'll let you know when you're all set.
Absolutely.
Everybody breathe.